It's about that time to grab your favorite snack and sit back and relax, because you are now listening to the MovieTime podcast with your hosts, LOWKEY Geek Renee Zalata and Blake the Wolf. Take it away, boys.
Oh, hey, what's up, everyone? We are back again. The Movie Bros are back in town for another episode for a brand new week of Movie Time goodness. We have a lot to talk about this episode, and it's one of those rare dream scenarios where we find ourselves in December celebrating May with temperatures that could possibly fall under or -1 degrees this weekend at the movie theaters. So
you worked all three movie titles into the intro.
Yes.
Thank you for doing that. I was trying to figure it out. You got it. Good job.
But yeah, we have a lot to talk about. But before we do that, dude, how have you been? How's your week been? I know you're a little under the weather.
Little under the weather. It's cold, as you mentioned.
Yeah.
But what that means is home movie season. Hell yeah. And it's perfect weather for just, okay, I'm going to go to the movie theater and not go out tonight or not go on the walk or the picnic in the park or whatever, just movie theater season. And we're in hardcore awards movie season to where it's like,
gosh, it's nuts.
I've got my AMC list and those 3 movie passes are getting used every week. And I've also been adding one at some point.
Oh no.
It's partially my fault for booking 3 Saltburns in 1 week and then be like, I got to buy a movie ticket. This is weird. How do you do that? Fandango or... but yeah, dude, we're in every week. There'll be a few movies to see that I'm hyped about. And all 3 of these are like, when I heard about them, I just go, okay, I'm definitely watching that when it drops.
Yeah. And there's like a lot of also little nuggets of movies that maybe we haven't heard about that kind of like sneak into the week and kind of like either release on Netflix or whatever the case is. And like, oh, wait a minute, I haven't heard about that. Oh, but that looks really interesting. I want to check that out. So it's definitely going to be like one of those crazy busy months. And we are excited that you are along for the ride as we talk about these movies that we saw this past week. Let's talk about the first film that we really wanted to talk about in this episode, and that is Dream Scenario. Dream Scenario is the latest Nicolas Cage movie brought to us by the lovely A24 that we love so much. The movie is basically about a family man who finds himself and his life turned upside down when millions of strangers suddenly start seeing him in their dreams. And basically all the stuff that comes along with that as far as fame, stardom, and kind of like the upside and downsides to all of that stuff. The director for this film is Christopher Borgli. I believe that's how you pronounce his last name. I have not been familiar with this person going into this movie. And even afterwards, when I looked him up, I am not familiar with anything that he has been attached to in the past. However, we should note that one of the producers of this film is Ari Aster. And the reason why I bring that up is because this feels like this movie came out of Ari Aster's dream. It feels like a movie that he would have easily have been, he could easily have done himself. It has a lot of very Ari Aster-ish type of moments and vibes all throughout. I think this is one of Nicolas Cage's best performances since Pig that came out, 2021, I think. Sometime around that time. I know it was still during pandemic time.
No, 2021, yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I am loving his choices as far as roles are concerned in his later years, in his later career. Earlier this year, we got to see him as Dracula in Renfield, which I thought was very comical and enjoyable. And then
also, Retirement Plan just dropped, and then was it last year? Was Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent?
Yeah,
or early this year, something like that. Yeah, I think last year.
Yeah.
He's got a little run going right now, and it's not the old style straight to Tubi Nick Cage movie release schedule where you just have 8 in a row. They're like, this came out straight to Blockbuster. Blockbuster's still around. Yeah. They printed 10 copies of this movie. It's actually just like a run of low, medium, or high quality Cage movies. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And I think this is definitely one of those that fall under the high Cage movies, but from an indie type of production, which I think he does really well in. And especially when you have someone that knows how to direct him. And I feel like this director knew how to work with him with all the different stuff that's happening. I thoroughly enjoyed this movie quite a bit. Again, I wasn't sure what to expect from this movie, except, a lot of strange scenarios happening. I mean, I saw it as kind of a different telling of a midlife crisis gone awry, kind of, sort of speak, where you have this very unassuming guy who hasn't really accomplished that much in life, but you could kind of tell he kind of wants to do a lot more, and everything around him seems to be moving at a faster pace than what he sees for himself. And then just with a blink of an eye, he comes across fame and fandom and stardom, and then everything that came with that. That's why I kind of say like upsides and downside of fame. I feel like a good theme here is the effect of social media and how virality can make or break a person. This movie does take a weird twist turn halfway through where it becomes this kind of funny thing as you're watching, and then it becomes very nightmarish and kind of like horrific when the dreams that people are having go from good to really bad quickly, like, and to the point where people don't even want to be in the same room with him anymore. That's just how bad it turns out, and how it affected his life and his marriage and this and that. And then I love how the final ending is basically how, because of what the phenomenon that they saw happening with this guy, how corporations and companies were trying to see how they can twist and turn it for marketing influencers and all that stuff, which is so damn hilarious. But you could so see that happening today if that was like a possibility. If influencers knew that they could go into your dreams and market their products and their goods and all that, that would be done in a heartbeat. And I love that little cameo we got from the guy from Succession. I forget what the actor's name is, but he was the president of the marketing company.
Nicholas Braun. Yeah.
I was like, oh, this guy is in here. Oh my God, it's like a perfect fit for him. But yeah, the movie was really, really fantastic. I laughed so much, but also cringed a lot when the things were kind of going the opposite way. And to my surprise, my audience, who I watched it with on Thursday early afternoon, dug it. I mean, they were all in on it. They were laughing and kind of like reacting to the same moments I was. So I really had fun with this movie. What about you? I feel like this is a movie that maybe you were into in the beginning, but just because of the cringiness of the scenarios happening, you probably were like, holy cow, this is nuts. I can't take this anymore.
I love a good cringe indie movie. Makes you uncomfortable, makes you squirm in your seat. Mm-hmm. Those are usually more my wheelhouse. Like Beau is Afraid is one of my favorite movies in recent memory. Yeah. That said, this one was a little more, it was less exciting, more dull, and like the juice from the squeeze wasn't always there for me. Mm-hmm. Even when I enjoyed it or appreciated it as high art indie art house movie, I was not having a great time in the theater. The funnest part for me was looking over at my buddy who cannot handle cringe. He can handle horror and the most nauseating action scenes and bloody whatever, and he's sitting there just going like, no, make this, because they're like, not going to spoil it, but there's a sex scene in there, which we're putting the word sex in quotes. He's trying to recreate someone's dream, and it's comically painful to watch. Yeah, I like those moments when it's a little bit more high energy, more at stake. Mm-hmm. Overall, the character's a bit of a schlub. He's a bit like, the professor with the oversized cardigan, and he's kind of a nerd, a dork. Doesn't have a lot going on, except he's really excited about his topic and the book hasn't started writing yet, but has been talking about for a long time. Yep. Overall, he's kind of like a do-nothing, primed for a midlife crisis guy. Mm-hmm. And I think there's something, this isn't the read of the movie, but who hasn't fantasized about like, oh, what if I suddenly became famous, or
Sure.
imagine it being interviewed by David Letterman or whatever. There was a Woody Allen movie a few years ago where Roberto Benigni plays the most normal man in the world, and he becomes famous because he's the most average man ever. They did like based on all metrics, he's just the most, and so he became like a reality icon. It's has some similar aspects to this movie with the rise and fall of the character.
Right.
So as a midlife crisis movie, it makes more sense. The other part where I'm not a big fantasy person, as you know, I get that they're not going to explain why he's in people's dreams, and it is a clever concept for a movie.
Yeah.
It didn't feel believable necessarily. They're showing people it's kind of hard to like show a dream without it feeling like a dream, and they're showing people dreaming about him, but it's like hearing a story at lunch when your friend's like, let me tell you about my dream last night, and you're like, okay, this is going to be good, and they say some wild non sequiturs. You're like, cool, okay, what do you want to eat? There's an unlimited potential for anything could happen, and yet literally nothing's happening. The person's just kind of laying in bed. That's kind of where that movie felt, is between like an intense dream and also nothing happening at all. And it rides that middle ground, kind of the space when you start to forget that you were like, oh, was that a dream? Was that really like, oh, okay, everything's fine. I'm going to go back to bed now. And it's like that nothing zone. Overall, I did enjoy it, which is the weird part. I left going, okay, probably never going to rewatch that. I wasn't very happy in the theater. I got more joy from the parts that were higher energy, but I was left with a little bit of a like a lukewarm taste in my mouth from the whole thing. That said, let's do a quick test. Just guess. You're not supposed to get this right. How many movies has Nick Cage been in, give or take?
Oh my goodness! In his entire career.
Yeah.
Oh, I want to say
you can be off by a lot.
500.
I'm so excited for what you're going to say. That's such a bad guess. That was actually the only guess that is a bad one. It's a lot. God damn it. It is a lot. It's like 115, 120 range.
Okay. It feels like he could have easily done 500.
Yeah. No, it feels like that. I get why you said that, and I actually like that you said that. That's why it's kind of funny that, like, is this a top 10 Nick Cage movie? Maybe not for you. Maybe for me, you're going to maybe like some of his other actionier stuff. But if we're talking like his indie movies, which we have that with a few folks of like Jim Carrey, Adam Sandler, they're going to do a few indie movies, and they're kind of pulpy in their careers overall, but they'll have some hot hits in the art house cinema world. They might get nominated for an Indie Spirit Award, a Gotham Award, whatever. In that vein, he's been in a Coen Brothers movie. He had Pig. He had a Charlie Kaufman movie with adaptation. Overall, I'm going to say, I'm going to say this is a top 10 art house Nick Cage movie. And just depends on what you want. This might be a top 10 movie overall. And out of 120, and I didn't really like it that much. That's saying a lot. But he did do a very good job of just playing the weird, nothing much going on dad, awkward dad type. So successful work on Nick Cage's part. Overall, I didn't enjoy the movie, but I enjoyed it. I still am not quite sure how I feel about it. You know?
I mean, it's again, I think given the type of movies that A24 puts out, this is a very typical A24 movie, right? And I think one of the things that really work with this movie, that it can lead to great conversations afterwards, right? Because you're right, they keep things very vague as far as like, well, why were people dreaming about this guy and why him? You know, like why all of a sudden? And then also, like, at the end, when we were talking about like the marketing firm who learned how to tap into people's dreams, well, how did that
Cera's
work?
Marketing firm. Love the Michael Cera bit.
The Michael Cera like appearance was so funny. Like, I feel like those are very typical conversations people would have with like marketing teams and all that stuff like that. But I'm talking about
his coworker. She was on one of my lists last year, but a really good, I think was the number 2 rated Letterboxd comedy special last year, something like that. She's fantastic. The name's escaping me now, but it's just Kate Berlant. But her and Michael Cera just
that was his assistant, or
I think they had co-started. They started it together or something. No, that was actually someone else who I know from. I had to do a little like, wait, who is this person? And now, of course, Google is so bad at showing the full cast of a movie.
Yeah, I know. Like it's hard.
That person, I had known them from something else. Oh, Shithouse. The person who had been having the dreams, and they go to recreate it. I think that was her apartment, right?
Yeah.
She was the female lead of Shithouse, which is a big favorite movie of mine from the last couple of years. A good indie, low budget movie.
Okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, like it was also nice seeing Tim Meadows in there, you know, being like having a more serious type of role. Even though there were some like kind of like chuckle moments that he provided and everything. But it's true. Like when you look at some of the filmographies of a lot of these people who've been in the industry for so long, you know, they do you know, some of them definitely do have their categories as far as type of films that they make, right? You have your blockbusters and then you have your indie art house stuff. To this day, Robin Williams, I think, is a great example of that, because you have him attached to so many major blockbusters. But one of my favorite movies of his is like 1 Hour Photo, which is like this little indie, like little crazy, awkward, cringy type of film that they made. And that's when he really started exploring his more kind of dramatic side and all that. And I love that movie. Bill Murray is another great example of that too. You know, he teamed up with Sofia Coppola and started doing all of these other like indie stuff. Broken Flowers, movies like that. Like those are such great films. So Nick Cage, I feel like he ran the gamut, where he's just basically like blockbuster, international film, this and that, straight to DVD, all this stuff. He's like whatever. And it's funny, in an interview recently, he said he's going to start slowing down now that he's much older. If he slows down and just focuses on films like this, I think that's going to be very beneficial, not only for him, but I'm sure for us as an audience. Because I remember when we were talking about the movie last year, Massive Talent, we were talking about Nicolas Cage as an actor as a whole. And I know you are not particularly a fan of his, and you do sometimes wonder what is the attraction with Nicolas Cage. And, you know, there is like a very heavy fan base when it comes to Nicolas Cage and all that. And I think you can kind of understand why, because he's so quirky and he's so, I guess, open in exploring and letting his freak out kind of way. You know, like even when you watch him sitting down and giving interviews, like he doesn't care what he says. You know, he just basically he's just Nick Cage, right? He has that persona.
He's the human version of Tom Cruise jumping on the couch in certain ways.
Right. Yeah. And I feel like a movie like this kind of helps kind of portray that on screen, and just the nuttiness that he can you know put out there, because like I said, unassuming dude, you know, really wanting to do more for himself, but then going through like those typical midlife crisis moments where like there was even a certain moment where you start questioning, well, is his wife really having an affair, or is he manifesting these thoughts in his head just based on what he's seeing and his paranoia and stuff like that, right? So it's so interesting to see a person going through that journey and all that, even though they don't really clarify or make it known why these things are happening. But that's what is great to lead to further conversation and discussions later on, because it's like, well, what if this happened to me? What if this happened to you? You know, how do you think you would react, especially given the state of the life he was at that moment, right? Because it's kind of like one of those like make or break moments. And then poor guy at the end, he thought he made it, but yet he's still getting the short end of the stick, where, you know, he finally publishes his book. They change the title of the book without him knowing. They double book a signing, and now he's restricted to the basement. And like it's like still things are still happening, but in, I guess, a better way. But you know, but I love how, you know, the whole popping into people's dreams, it becomes a more reality. And he tries to do that as a one last ditch effort to save his marriage or and all that, which was kind of sweet actually at the end, and very, very touching at that moment. So I felt like this movie just had a lot in there.
Oh, for sure. It was very sweet. There's also the sad aspect where like that's when he was most relevant.
Right.
And that's part of, I think, the question at the heart of it is he's an insecure dude, which the wife clears up early on of like saying about how defensive he is and assumes that someone is insulting him, or he's looking for the secret insult in what someone's saying. Maybe it wasn't the wife, it was the ex-girlfriend, but something like that, where somebody would say something and I could see how it's insulting, but he's really leaning into being defensive all the time. Then I think it answers one of the questions that people talk about is like, why is it that when someone becomes very famous, they often lose their minds or perspective, or you get wealthy, notoriety, whatever, you go viral, and then suddenly the person's acting funny. And a lot of people like who are unempathetic to that journey for celebrities, and then other people who go like, yeah, I don't want to be famous because I'm sure that something like that would happen.
Yeah.
What I've heard a lot of folks say and summarize it is whatever you are, whoever you are as a person, is just more of that. And I think we get that to some degree, where his own like paranoias are manifesting,
and they're heightened.
And he's and then he's becoming more famous, and he's of course the guy who does he really want to see his daughter perform, or is he bothered on an ego trip that he's not being allowed to see his daughter perform? So he kind of loses it. And the guy's a bit of an idiot, isn't considering other people, and literally doesn't know where the woman's hands are when he's accidentally slamming the door on those hands. And that is a really good, the nightmare is real moment, where a woman is squirting blood.
Oh my God.
And everyone who's been having a nightmare about this guy being violent is now watching him going, I didn't do anything, I'm innocent. And it's also one of those things that's really hard for me to watch. I'm sure when you're caught up in the moment, it hasn't happened to me before, thank goodness. But I'm sure when you're caught up in the moment, it's hard to think clearly like a horror movie. But I'm also going, stop saying what you're saying, because it makes you seem real guilty, my guy.
Right.
Just like take a moment, breathe, and be like, okay, so here's what happened. I tried to open the door and it's accidentally shut on her fingers. Not, it was an accident. I didn't want to do this to you. You made me, or whatever.
Yeah, because it makes him look more crazy, and then everyone's like, I knew it. He is that way, and all that, and then that's when chaos happens.
Yeah. They did a really good job. I've seen it before in other people. I'm sure I've done it to someone. It's like they smile in just such a way. Their eyes are in a certain way. And you're like, oh, this is a demented person. But it's just kind of how they're smiling in that moment. Yeah. But he's listening to a story going, oh, wow. Really? You had a dream about me? You're like, okay, this dude's definitely creepy as hell. And we're also just like, other people are projecting their own image of him onto him. And it's, a real part of celebrity is like, you're not living your own life. You're living the life. There's people who are a bad guy in a movie and people yell at them on the street and they're like, I didn't do that.
Right.
This is a similar story here. I think this is probably what the movie is best as a metaphor for, is there's the midlife crisis aspect. And then there's that celebrity and how that can go wrong kind of aspect. Yeah. And it seemed like the kind of art house movie though. It's not, I'm not going to call it Oscar bait, but it's kind of thing that's, you said that there's good conversation afterward. I'm not entirely certain that's the case. I'm not saying it's impossible, and I'm not even saying that you're entirely wrong. I just don't know that a lot of people are going to leave this and have a deep talk about a lot of things that aren't already kind of clear. Like, sometimes a person goes through a midlife crisis, or being a celebrity could drive you crazy. The nature of dreams, like this isn't something of Science of Sleep or Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind or something like that, where it's like in that weird in-between reality of what's real and what isn't. This isn't necessarily doing that either. It's just more of an it is what it is movie, at least in my mind.
I think it depends. I think it depends on the individual. Like, for example, I know you, for example, you are not one who reads the tabloids or who follows gossip or anything like that, who watch reality shows or whatever the case is. I feel like if you have individuals who are into a lot of that stuff, that can lead into comparisons of, oh, this kind of reminds me of what happened with this guy or whatever. Like me, I've been very in tune, like the YouTube space. And a lot of these older YouTubers are now facing controversies right now because of things that they've done, because of their fame or whatever the case. So there's a huge spotlight.
I can't wait for that to happen to you, Renee. I'm so excited for you to shave your head on camera or something.
Yeah, I create a product and I charge triple the price for it, and it's really a stolen product from somebody else, which is currently happening to a popular YouTuber.
I figured. I was like, I don't know that story. We
Yeah.
can't get into that. Okay. Wow. Yeah. I
But
hope that happens to you someday, Renee. I'm rooting for you to lose your mind in the public eye.
Yeah, I'll make sure we all benefit from it. Yeah, at the end of it.
I will not be there for your downfall, but when you start to become relevant again, I'll come back around.
Nice.
Don't worry.
Nice.
Like, hey, buddy, when are we going to record again? You're like, you haven't talked to me while I was in jail.
It's nice to see where the loyalties lie and what I can expect in the future. But I think, like, again, those type of people will have a lot to talk about when they see a movie like this, and it's valid because they do touch base on a lot of the stuff that's happening in certain circles of our society now, and like I said, like that whole moment with him sitting down with Michael Cera and that whole marketing group, I feel like I've been in meetings just like that, when I used to work in advertising, and I'm just like, oh my God, this is just extremely excruciating to watch. But it happens, it happens out there, so yeah. Final Letterboxd score for you. You said you gave it a 4. Is that what you said?
Yeah, off memory, if I gave it a 4.5, I'm dropping it to 4.
Okay.
It's that weird ground where I go, oh, this is successful. It's at what it's trying to do. It is a good art house movie, but I'm just not feeling it necessarily. If I'd been in a different mood or something, maybe I would have absolutely eaten it up.
Mm-hmm.
But it did a very good job at what it was trying to do. So I'm going a solid 4 stars on it.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I went 4 stars as well, and I also hearted it too. Like I said, like,
I went 3.5 and heart. Maybe I'll jump it up to 4. Wow.
Oh, look at that! It happens sometimes when
I was in a bad mood when I saw it. I'm going 4. Here we go. Yeah, we're moving it.
Nice. I mean, the thing is, like, things change, right? Like, there's a movie we're going to be talking about later that my rating may change after we talk more about it, or the more I've been thinking about it. Yeah. But it does happen. Like, one of the bad things about what we do sometimes, or what I do, is that you watch a movie and you want to put out your immediate reaction to it, right? But sometimes you need to let something sink for a day or two, a week, because your feelings for whatever you watch could easily change, like, very quickly. It could go, better or worse, right? We're like, you know what, that movie really sucked. Or, the more I think about it, I can't stop thinking about it. So I must have really liked that movie a lot, So it's
why was that person dancing in front of me for the entire Taylor Swift Eras film? 1 star. Too much dancing.
Too much dancing. Yeah. And too much flashing lights.
I didn't even get a friendship bracelet at the end of it. Yeah.
Right.
I don't know what they give out friendship bracelets in that movie. Okay.
Idiot. Yeah. Yep. But okay, yeah. So that's Dream Scenario. Looks like a 4 across the board from us. And like I said, I love Nicolas Cage when he does movies like this. I think this is definitely the route he should stick in, and the lane he should stick in. Speaking of sticking in, now we have a movie called December.
No. Oh, okay. Thank goodness. Oh, no. Yeah, that is where you're going.
Well, there is, like, sticking.
I'm going to let you intro this one.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. You take over.
Okay.
I don't want any part of that.
Todd Haynes. We love Todd Haynes here on the channel. Todd Haynes has done a lot of great movies, and his latest movie is now out on Netflix as of today, as of the recording of this, called December. It stars Natalie Portman and Julianne Moore. The movie basically is about 20 years after a notorious tabloid romance. A married couple is buckling under the pressure when a Hollywood actress meets them to do research for a film about their past. So I had a chance to see this at New York Film Festival. At the festival, this was one of their main slate movies. I believe it was their opening night film too. So I was able to, catch the press screening of it there. And I was also lucky because it was the first time I got to catch a sit down with the director, and Todd Haynes was there to talk about it. It was unfortunate that Natalie Portman wasn't there because it sounds like she had a lot to do with this movie as well. And it was one of those rare occasions where Todd wrote a movie with someone in mind. And I believe Natalie Portman was on his mind when he wrote this role. Now, there's a lot of comparisons about a real life scenario that happened here in the United States. This movie does kind of relate to a lot of different scenarios and newsworthy items. Well, newsworthy, quote unquote, but tabloidy news that we have heard about or that we see that are more common that's happening a lot these days is where you have like a forbidden romance that forms between an older person and a younger person, and kind of like the upsides and downside that happens when that relationship comes into fruition. Most of the time what we see in tabloids today, it's like teacher gets arrested for having sex with a student or whatever the case is. Here the situation happens where you have an older lady falling in love with a younger person that they work together with, like where they met and all that. And it causes this big ruckus. They get married, they stay together, they, have kids and all that stuff like that. So many years later, Natalie Portman is tasked to kind of portray the Julianne Moore's character in kind of a made-for-TV movie. I believe it was a made-for-TV movie. So think of your Lifetime movies, think of your Hallmark movies, think of your made-for-TV movie of the weeks and all that. And this is what that movie felt like, actually. I felt like I was watching a better version of one of those type of movies about someone who is making a movie like that, and that's what was the major intrigue.
Wait, this movie was the Lifetime movie, or the movie within the movie was the Lifetime movie?
This movie, May December, was made to mimic a kind of Lifetime type movie, but in a better way, about someone who is making a Lifetime type movie based off of a real situation. Yeah,
there are levels to this one for sure. So that's an interesting take. I'm not sure if I agree with it, but I'm excited to get into that. Okay.
Yeah, that was kind of my takeaway from it, because there were a lot of moments in this movie where it felt very kind of like seductive and very haunting. The way Natalie Portman portrayed her character and how you see her like hovering over Julianne Moore's character, trying to pay attention and mimic everything that she does to kind of get into the role, get into the persona. But even so much so that she starts developing a relationship with the husband, and to the point where they even have sex, at towards the end, to kind of get into the mindset of, oh, I see why she was attracted to this guy, or getting into the weeds of it, kind of like almost like that movie Single White Female, but not in a nefarious way, just in a way to like, okay, now I know the character and I understand the character. Now I can portray her on film and stuff like that. But also, Julianne Moore is not innocent here either. Like she understands a lot of the stuff she did was wrong, but she could care less, right? She just basically like, this is the way I am, and I have no regrets for what I've done. I'm apologizing to nobody. And all that, this is the way it is. But she has her own quirks too, where you could tell that she's very needy. She needs that attention, and poor hubby over there is suffering with, trying to find that balance of being happy and then being the servant, so to speak, or the emotional support for this lady for their entire life. So I think as a whole, that's what made this movie very intriguing and interesting for me. It just had a lot of those very, seductive and haunting moments, but there was also a lot of comedic moments in there too. It's very much a parody on certain aspects of life that we've seen in the news or in tabloids, put on screen there. But I think at the end of the day, the performances were really amazing across the board, with Natalie Portman being front and center here. But huge talk about Charles Melton and his performance, and him possibly being a front runner for supporting actor during award season. So, and I thought he did
just won a Gotham too. Just in the last couple of days or so. Yeah.
So again, for a film that I'm glad you finally got a chance to see it, because when I saw it at the festival, we briefly spoke about it, and you even asked me like, this sounds like a me movie, but is it a me movie like that? And I said, you know what? I think what I said to you was, just wait and watch it, and then let's talk about it when you watch it, because I wasn't sure. It it felt like it.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I feel like you could have taken a different approach with it too. So how did you take it as you saw it?
This is you're talking about the tabloid stories earlier, and in particular, it's the female teacher with the male student kind of thing. When it's the other gender dynamic, it's not the same like tabloid intrigue curiosity. It's more like
predatory.
gross, send a dude to jail. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which I'm sure there's going to be a lot of feelings raised about that aspect in general, but it makes it to where you can at least, there's something in the public consciousness that you can tap into beyond that's gross, I don't want to think about that, just send the dude to jail kind of thing. And then the true story here, which I did a little bit of wikiing on until I was like, I don't know if I want to learn more about this situation while I'm watching the movie. It's rare to have a movie here where there's the backstory of, I don't know if the pedophilia is the technical correct term, but at least statutory. And also in this case, in the movie, she's not the teacher. They work at a pet shop together.
They work at a pet shop.
Which I thought was a weird choice. I didn't like that choice necessarily, but I kind of get that it no longer becomes the teacher-student dynamic, and that changes. I guess she was his supervisor, but not necessarily his teacher. So maybe there's a good reason for that. I'm not really thinking of. It does recontextualize that story, though. So maybe it gives you a fresher perspective rather than thinking of the actual news stories where that happens.
Yeah. I think that, and again, not knowing for sure, this was not a question that was brought up during the press conference, but I have a feeling that it was done more so that you take away the teacher-student relationship, which is more of like mentor versus like, you know, whatever. And you kind of put them in a more equal ground because they're just two coworkers, right? So it makes it less cringy, you know, I guess in a way. Softens the blow.
Yeah, well, at least it gets rid of that. You're right, the mentor aspect. Whereas, and I thought she was his supervisor in the movie. I even could be wrong about that. They may have been technical colleagues where she has which then we're going away from the power dynamic aspect of the job, or it is there if I'm right in remembering that. But still, the age gap is the It kind of reduces it down to that part.
Yeah.
I don't know, but at least in my own public consciousness, my awareness of it, the teacher-student one is the more famous story. So just more people are going to have connections to it or biases built into that based on things that they've heard, read, know about, etc. Overall, the movie, I feel like I could get into the nitty-gritty because part of what you're talking about is there's a movie within the movie and there's layers of characters. Someone's impersonating someone, they start to look more like them, they start to act more like them. We'll get into that in a second, but overall, this is not too dissimilar from Dream Scenario, where I go, wow, this is very successful, and I am not enjoying a second of it. My stomach was turning at parts. I felt really grossed out. And there's a part where it's a little bit of a horror movie kind of vibe, where there's this monster lurking in the background from their past, and yet they're in this nice summer home, or their nice home, beautiful weather, the family's playing out in the yard, and you're like, but there's a monster right behind you.
And plus the way they're
writing, I feel like,
as a family too, like basically everyone in town hates them. You know, they're getting they're getting mailed shit in the box and all that.
Just my general thoughts on the movie. I watched it late at night on Netflix right after it dropped, and I feel like it was a really well written movie. It was very smartly directed. There's parts of it where it did have that. I think I see what you're talking about now. It had the Lifetime feel, and I was thinking like, oh, this isn't as good of directing, but it's because they're leaning more into the pulpy story. We've seen directors do that sometimes. They're telling a tabloid story, so they do tabloid style directing. Our bias says, oh, this isn't quality, but it's actually helping enhance the meaning of the film. I'll give you that. The acting is phenomenal all the way through.
Yeah.
Every single person, and there's some unknowns to younger actors. Even when someone, let me not get lost, because there's another movie within the movie that she watches. It's a very salacious version of the story.
Yeah.
I keep getting almost lost in these details, so I'll just keep it broad overall.
Yeah.
I feel like it was very successful, and I'm not sure I'm ever going to have the stomach to watch this thing again. And I hope it wins awards, but I'm going to kind of root for it to not, almost. Like, I'm a little angry that it was so good at what it was doing, because it's such a sinister story to make and tell.
Mm-hmm.
I'm glad it was told. I'm glad it exists.
Yeah.
I don't want to watch it again.
I'm glad they got who is attached to it, because I think the chemistry between like Julianne Moore and Natalie Portman was so like just magnetic in a way. You know, it's just like, and it's funny because Natalie was kind of like a magnet to her, you know, like, again, just trying to engulf every mannerism and kind of, you know, personality trait and movements and all that stuff, where you're seeing someone transform towards you know, the end of the movie, you know, and then you kind of question, well, who is Natalie Portman's character anyway? And we're getting like little hints of her own character, like when she was at the hotel and she having a phone call with, I don't know, is that her lover or is that her agent, or is that, you know, it's like one of those weird things. Are they involved in a weird affair too? Because it sounds like they were.
It was implied for sure, and it wasn't her fiance, and that dude's married, and she was like, "Is your wife home?"
Yeah,
something like that. So that can't be her fiance necessarily,
right?
Or maybe it's even more, you know, mushed
more
together, and it grows.
Yeah,
it's her fiance, but he's married now, or whatever.
Yeah, it's crazy, you know. And again, like, and I'm glad that you kind of understand what I'm talking about, where like how it felt like a tabloidy kind of film. I love the choices of, like, for example, they're having a deep conversation and Julianne Moore will just turn and make like a statement, and the way they kind of like zoom in on her, it feels like kind of like those like tabloidy type Lifetime type movies and all that, where it's just like soap opera like that, you know. And they have like a lot of moments, and then the music kind of cues in and does things like that. It was just a really, really well done movie. Now, I'm assuming you're probably, I'm not assuming, I know this for sure, you're probably more familiar with Todd Haynes' filmography than I am. Like, I know Carol, like that is a movie that I do really love quite a bit. You know, again, Cate Blanchett, how can you not love any movie with her in it? How can you not love, I meant to say. And Rooney Mara was in that movie too. But he's, you know, he's done a lot of stuff. He's been in the business for a very long time. Would this, how would you consider this compared to like his other movies in his filmography?
Quick thought exercise: Cate Blanchett in the Julianne Moore role, better or worse?
Ooh.
Right? I had that thought. I was like, I got to ask Renee what your thoughts are.
Oh,
there's something about Julianne Moore where that warm smile, and she's kind of got the innocence more. Cate Blanchett's a little edgier, I think. She can play it. She would just have to do more acting,
would have, yeah.
Whereas Julianne Moore has that more naturally, but then Julianne Moore goes to the dark place, and it was creepy.
Yeah, I feel like Cate will do the dark place extremely well. You know, but she would have to do more acting to be kind of the bubbly, you know, housewifey kind of, like, I feel like that would be more of a job for her to do, where Julianne Moore you feel like that's her real true personality. And then when she makes that turn, you're like, oh, wait a minute, there's something sinister behind those eyes like that. I love the choice though. Like I could kind of see it happening, but I have to give credit to Julianne Moore for pulling it off.
Yeah. No, I actually, now that I'm thinking about it, Cate Blanchett overacting, not that she's bad, has that problem with that, but she can really act her ass off. It may have made it hit more false in some moments where Julianne Moore's character is being asked to be like subtly sinister, and Cate Blanchett's might read, she's really good at it, but just overtly like, oh God, this person is, you know, capable of murder. Julianne Moore, it's harder for us to get there in our heads, I think. Overall, you're asking me about Todd Haynes. He is a me type of director. That said, I've only seen I'm Not There, which, as a huge Bob Dylan fan, when that movie came out, I was in college, a big favorite of mine. And then Carol, of course, which was 8 years later. Since then, dude's done 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 movies in the last 8 years, whereas between those two movies, he had 0 over 8 years. So that was one of the stories that happens when Carol drops is dude hasn't had a movie in a while.
Yeah.
The other thing I'm going to read, this is from the, did I lose it? Oh yeah, here we go, from the Wikipedia page. So yeah, great source, but this is we'll do a better job of explaining something I'm going to talk about than I can. Haynes' films often feature formal cinematic or narrative devices that challenge received notions of identity and sexuality and remind the audience of the artificiality of film as a medium. That last part, the artificiality of film as a medium, I think gets to what you're talking about with the Lifetime movie aspect of it.
Yeah.
And that there's two movies within the movie here.
Yeah.
Either way, I don't think I'm going to go too deep into that aspect of it because we could get lost in the sauce pretty quickly. But the movie at the end where Natalie Portman is playing the character that she's been prepping for,
it looks like shit.
Really looks like shit.
Yeah.
Gave Lifetime Movie Awards, and it also gave, I'm going to just call it what it is. There was a porn movie where they're watching the setup early on based on this story. Yeah. And it gave those similar vibes too, right?
Yeah.
Am I making that up? And then the kid's hair was kind of corny, like faux hawk thing. They're playing with this snake. Like it was, I thought the whole time, I thought she was a very serious actress, and maybe she is. And maybe the movie looks good because there's times you see a clip from a movie, it doesn't look good, it actually is. And in a way, this movie is doing a similar thing, right? Like you're talking about with the way it's shot. I think that's a smart thing to do, is show the pulpier aspects of this story and that the director is aware that that's part of what's happening. And I think that helps break through the audience's relationship to a story like that, to say, no, I'm aware that this is a tabloid. And that's something that Natalie Portman's character is trying to do too. Break through. And she says this at one point, how do you choose your characters? And why would you choose this one? She's saying, like, I want to get past the tabloid aspect and learn what actually made this person do what they did and the decisions that they made. So I think by calling it out and acknowledging that story, because there's those two movies within the movie, and then there's also the tabloid, and they're showing the headlines and the way that someone like that, their story, and at some point even near the end, the young man's breakdown where he's saying, you don't understand, this isn't a story, this is my life.
This is my life, right? Yeah.
So there's that thing where throughout the movie, there's they're showing that story or recreations of it in the tabloids, the porn film, at the end with the Natalie Portman movie, kind of interrupting that these are human beings and what's actually making them tick and make the decisions they make. The other thing I'll say, and I think I'll throw it back to you, because we could really get lost in the psychology of Julianne Moore's character, and I do not want to.
No.
Creeped me the hell out.
No.
There's a moment where she... Actually, I'll ask that question at the end, because there's something I don't understand about the movie, but she has her own story in her head, kind of.
Yeah.
Which the lawyer talks about, like, she still doesn't get why it was such a big deal.
Right.
And she's going, no, this is a love story. This is Romeo and Juliet. We're two forbidden lovers, and that's creepy. She also was really good at, she said one of her tricks, or one of the things that's made her successful in life, helped her out a lot, is her naivete, which you can definitely see. And her son, the damaged son, points out, I think it's from childhood trauma. There's a cheaper version of the movie where they lean more into that. Like, oh yeah, she had an incident when she was younger and now has that, oh, I'm a young woman mentality or something. And is kind of in denial about any of the ramifications of her age or something like that. Then near the end, but either way, there's also the story within the story, which is the story that these people tell about themselves, right? Which we all do in our own way of like, oh, this is why I haven't been successful or have been successful, or this is why this person broke up after a breakup. Everyone's telling a story about their lives and it's not actually what happened ever.
Right.
Everybody is dealing with that in job interviews, everything, right? Your friend asks how your day is and you're like kind of coming up with a story on the fly and you're selling yourself in a way. All that said, the two questions I have really are, did Julianne Moore's character have that lisp the entire time? And I just didn't hear it until they break through her psychology to a degree. And then that reveals itself more. And then also, do you believe the son that there was that childhood trauma with her older brothers, or do you believe Julianne Moore when she said, that never happened, by the way? I have answers.
Sure.
I think the lisp was real, and I think that did happen. And when the son told Julianne Moore that he'd said that, or she just knows that boy mentions that, she's in denial, which is exactly when you would say, yeah, that didn't happen, is if you are in that naivete mindset. So it's hard to trust her as a recounting, but it's also, who else are we going to trust? It's a tough call, but my gut is that that actually did happen. But it might be because I'm looking for an explanation, which is another reason why we tell stories and believe what we want to believe. There's some confirmation bias. Like, yeah, just explain this, because I don't want to just think that this person's living such a messed up life for no good reason,
Yeah. It's a common thing that we see all the time, where someone is creating their own narrative. Someone is creating their own reality, and that's what they believe in, and then they won't pay attention to what's the real truth out there or what people are saying, because they just don't believe it. Like, no, I mean, we've seen that during a certain presidency, for 4 years, where people are believing a certain narrative and ignoring a lot of other things that's happening around them or in the world, right? So you have an individual here who, I do believe what happened in the past happened, and the lisp is there almost as kind of a character quirk, where you don't notice it when things are okay, but when things are being challenged, it starts sneaking in, and she's using that as like a mechanism to be like, no, this is really what's happening, and you're stupid, and I'm going to try to charm you into believing me more so than what you're being told otherwise. Kind of like a snake. Like how
I didn't put that together.
The snake
Damn it!
kind of charms somebody.
Oh, okay, it got creepier when you mentioned the snake part.
Yeah,
okay.
But that's how it was.
Me.
Yeah, trust in me. I'm really telling you the truth.
I'm thinking Jungle Book. Maybe I made that up. The snake says,
no, you're right. You're right. Yeah.
Okay,
when he's like trying to hypnotize Mowgli and all that. Yeah. And we see that in also an innocent side, where you have an older person who starts talking like a little kid to kind of convince you to agree with them and do things that they want to do, like that. So it is that thing that we've seen in real life, and I thought it was a brilliant choice to kind of add that to her character and in portraying how, I guess, monstrous and sinister she can really be, behind the scenes and all that. So again, I feel like Julianne Moore did a brilliant job at that. And then going back to the whole movie reveal at the end and how crappy it looked, I think that's like the great capper to this whole thing, because throughout the entire movie, it's true, we are under the notion that Natalie Portman is a prestigious actress and all that. But if you start,
Natalie Portman is, but her character now, I'm not so sure.
Right. Yeah. Natalie Portman herself is a fantastic actress. The actress that she's playing in the movie is being portrayed as if she is one. But if you look back at some of those situations and scenarios, I feel like she's an actress trying to make a comeback for herself. So she is also trying to redeem herself and bring herself back into the limelight. But she's stuck on a project that ended up becoming another made-for-TV kind of hot mess. Very reminiscent to, if you remember, when the whole Amy Fisher situation back in the day with Joey Buttafuoco and, the love affair, and she's like the young teenager falling in love with this older guy. She confronts the wife, shoots the wife in the face with a shotgun. The wife survives, all this kind of stuff like that. And they came out with these two made-for-TV movie portrayals of the story. One starred Shannon Doherty, the other one starred somebody else. And it was so cheesy and campy and all that stuff. This felt like that's what they did here, where the movie that Natalie Portman character was like studying and trying to get into the mode and the character ended up becoming just one of those like really cheesy, campy, made for TV type of scenarios and all that. And I thought, for me, I got a good laugh out of that, because I just thought that was very comical, but at the same time sad, that someone put herself through all of that stuff for that type of project at the end of the day, you know. And it was just, and you're right. I love the fact that, you know, the husband in all of this, Joe, the character that Charles Melton plays, is really kind of the innocent in all of this. You know, he's just like, I'm just trying to live a life. You see how he acts with the kids. He loves the kids. He's trying to be like a good dad and all that. And he's just stuck in this kind of weird circus of a life that is mainly because of Julianne Moore's character. And now he's getting trapped into the indulgence and the charm of Natalie Portman's character, ends up cheating on his wife, only to be kind of like thrown away, so to speak, when things are all said and done, and she moves on to Hollywood and does her movie and everything like that. So it is kind of like that portrayal is like, even though how nutty these storylines are that we hear on the news or we see in the tabloids or we see on news clips on YouTube, there are real lives behind it all. And I love that he tries to still portray that and bring that into the focus. Like, you know, this is not your crazy soap opera tale. Like, this is my life, you know, and you know, whether it's fortunate or unfortunate, right? So, yeah, a lot of crazy stuff happening in this film.
The one thing I couldn't quite call, I wanted to learn more about the behind the scenes. You see at New York Film Festival, congratulations. I'm curious if there's anything from the Q&A. I need to do more reading on it. Maybe these questions have already been answered. But there's something interesting about an adaptation of a true story, which in this case, it's not really an adaptation of that true story, but it's inspired by it. But I'm also thinking of the movie adaptation, where it's actually about adapting a book, but then the movie becomes about adapting that book. And I'm curious at what point maybe the director said, oh, we should do a movie about that woman's life. Maybe we should have Natalie Portman play that woman. And for all I know, some of these things actually happened, right? There's there's times where, and then they get to the point where he's going, oh, this movie actually is gross. No one's going to want to watch. It's happened a few times in movies where I'm thinking of like the Kate Winslet movie where she falls in love with the young boy Nazi. And it's really hard to watch and sell tickets for a movie like that, where there's an older person and a younger love story. Like hard to even, I can't imagine asking an actor like, hey, can you just like have a sex scene with this in real life young person? Like an intimacy coordinator might have just the wildest time. Okay, no one's allowed to touch anyone for this entire production. No high fives, right? I can't fathom me wanting to go see that movie, no matter how many awards it won, right? It's just going to be a little too nauseating. I'm curious if any of this is based on that, of an actual event of someone trying to adapt that movie, or like what you're talking about, there are actual movies based on some of these stories, the Lifetime type movies. Another question I had was, there's some directors where they have their actors improvise a lot and it's not as script heavy. I don't know about Todd Haynes and his process. I need to go back. Far From Heaven's been on my watch list forever. If you're a streaming service watching this, please put it on your streaming service. I want to watch it so badly. I could fathom a world where he says, hey, Natalie Portman, go interact with Julianne Moore's character as if you were studying her, ask her the questions you would ask, and then Julianne Moore's character has a script or enough information about the backstory. Because this is a movie about creating a movie more than anything.
Right.
And if everyone kind of knows their own character's backstory, you could improvise a lot of this dialogue. The mirror scene when they're putting the makeup on each other, these are two of our best actresses alive. And that scene in particular was powerful.
Such a great scene.
And the other thing I'm thinking with the lisp, which that's the first time I really noticed it break through, and it really gave me the creeps. There's a snake aspect, which you'd mentioned. There's also she could be retrogressive, regrading, degrading. It's when your brain kind of goes back in time. You regress. It could have been like a regressive to a time when she's younger and she sounds more girlish when they're breaking through the psychology of the character and why she did, and her naivete doesn't survive. There's the gross thing too, where Julianne Moore's character is really good at manipulating people into not breaking her naivete.
Right.
I've known people who have this ability. I've seen it before. And then there's I'm thinking mainly of the scene where her husband they have an argument, And she does everything she can to not talk about the things she does not want to talk about. And she's saying, but the graduation is tomorrow, is her last gesture. And before that, she's basically like throwing everything out there other than answering his question and addressing his feelings. Because addressing his feelings would require her to drop her naivete and go into that weird, dark place that she cannot handle. And so instead, she just keeps throwing up just defensive maneuvers in the conversation. And he's losing it, going, I just want to talk about this, and you won't let me. I've known folks who are really good at that. This was a good study of that kind of mindset, which it's a hard thing. You have to really get layers into a character, and the writing has to get layers into them to show an audience within a 2-hour movie. This person is selling themselves a story and selling other people and selling you. And we're going to cut through all of that without them ever breaking character and going, fine, I was lying the whole time. You know,
Right.
It has to be so subtly and just a blade slicing through the bullshit personas we put out and the defense mechanisms that humans can just have layers and layers of. This is one of the most expertly done versions I've seen of that, between the acting, writing, and Todd Haynes directing. I thought that was fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, from what I've gathered from the Q&A, I think he would prefer it if people would just not make a comparison of the kind of like story it may have been loosely based off of. I think for him, it's more like he got the idea from something like that, and he created his own, maybe from like multiple influences or whatever the case is. And it also sounds like, you know, he worked extremely close with Natalie Portman, Julianne Moore, and giving them the freedom to create their character and their kind of personas. I believe I read Julianne Moore was the one who decided to create that list for herself to kind of portray the, you know, like exactly what you said, to use that as a mechanism to either convince others that what she's telling is the truth, or to follow her lead or go her way, or like that whole like regressive type of mentality where it's just like she harkens back to a time when she was quote unquote innocent, and you know the naivety like really comes out in full force during those moments, right? So great portrayal of someone who knows how manipulative they can be and uses it to their utmost advantage when they have to. And then in Natalie Portman's case, I feel like in a certain way, she is a good mimic of that, because I think she has a lot of that in her too. It's just we didn't really get to see it because she's so busy trying to mimic the manipulation ways of this other person, right? So it's just one of those like great 1-2 punches that we got here with the two actresses. And yeah, I agree. Because of the writing, the directing, and the kind of portrayals of these characters from the two, this is probably one of those greatest examples of manipulation and kind of the dark side of that put on film, right? And how it could really affect those people around them and who they interact with and everything. So yeah, I mean, it is definitely going to be a movie that may not appeal to a lot of people, or I think a lot of people may have their own takeaways and all that stuff. But was I right in thinking that this is a very you movie at the end of the day? Like, what was your final rating on Letterboxd?
It's the movie. It's the kind of movie I'm fascinated by and hate watching.
Yeah.
These happen every award season. I'm like, this is the one I do not want to watch.
Right.
And I didn't know much about it because I intentionally avoided it. Once I heard awards buzz, saw the cast, knew the director, and go, okay, I'm watching this no matter what. I didn't know what the heck it was about at all, which is part of why it was more unsettling. In theory, I probably should have checked the plot on this one and gone, ooh, I'm going to really need to eat a good lunch before I sit through this. Or not, because I almost threw up at a certain point. But yeah, I'm going to go 4 stars. Part of when I rate a movie isn't just how good and successful it was as a quality of movie, but how much did I enjoy it and do I want to rewatch it? Is this the kind of thing that I'm really plugged in on? I value that. Some folks will say, oh, it was a great job. I'm like Requiem for a Dream, 5 stars, never going to watch it again. I'm like, yeah, but if I was miserable, I do care about the entertainment value of a movie. And if my skin is crawling for 2 hours, that's going to hurt the score and increase the score in other ways. Some folks say 0 stars, I felt bad. I go, oh, good job. You made me feel icky. High quality marks, but it's hard for me to give it a 5 if I was uncomfortable the whole time.
Right.
That's my rating for it is a solid 4 right now. I want to ask you this though before you tell me yours.
Sure.
Award stuff. How are we feeling? Like, not even just like what do we think is likely or what are the predictors saying? Are you thinking this will get a lot of nominations or possibly 0? It's that weird.
I think we should really pay attention to Charles Melton as far as supporting actor in this. I do, because I am hearing a lot of people talking about his portrayal and his performance here. Now that it's out on Netflix, I'm starting to, like this morning, I started already seeing people on Twitter or Twix mentioning him, like saying like he is like the breakout star. Because prior to that, a lot of people were talking about Natalie Portman's performance here, because I thought she did a brilliant job all throughout. So could she be possibly in talks of actress in this? I don't know, but I think Charles is the one to look out for. And maybe screenplay for this, because I do think it deserves a nod for that. Other than that, I'm not sure about everything else, but I'm also starting to see this movie creeping into people's top 10 lists for the year. Again, now that it's out on Netflix, I think more and more people are now finally getting a chance to see it, and that could bode and say for something by next year. So who knows? But yeah, I gave it a 4 stars. I also hearted it too. Out of all the things I saw at the festival, this definitely made my top 10 of the things that I watched. And again, for someone who's not so familiar with Todd Haynes, except for like Carol, I really, really enjoyed this. And it does make me want to go back and watch more of his stuff, because I'm sure I'm missing so many different things that he's done that maybe it would make more sense to me why he directed this movie the way he directed it and all that, and give me more of a sensibility of his art and that little blurb that you read about the way he kind of manipulates film and how it's like the way he tells the story. I want to see more of those examples, right? So and again, it is one of those movies I don't think I will go back to watch it, but because of how it made me feel, and because of the performances in general, that's why I gave it a 4 out of 5 stars. Very much like I like to bring up all the time Schindler's List. Great movie, great directing, great performances, tough subject. I could never go back and watch it again, but I give it a 5 stars like that. It's just like one of those things. So
yeah, I'm excited. I was just going to respond on the awards stuff.
Yeah.
Poor Things is coming out soon. That'll be an upcoming episode. I'm excited about. That'll have Mark Ruffalo and Willem Dafoe throwing their hat in the supporting ring. That'll really switch the game up. But the fact that dude just won the Gotham Award and you're hearing buzz about it, that would be really interesting. And that takes up a 5th slot that wasn't being predicted by a lot of people.
Yeah.
My other question is Natalie Portman and Julianne Moore. I'm seeing Julianne Moore as supporting and Natalie Portman as lead. Does that feel right to you? I was actually thinking it's kind of the other way around. I guess they are following Natalie Portman around more.
Exactly.
There are times where we're showing more and more less, and Portman more. Okay. If you had to choose one or the other, it's also the kind where it kind of could be 2 leads or 2 not 2 support. But yeah, I that makes sense to me actually now that I think about it. I personally, as of now, would nominate all 3. I think, but when at the end of the year, when we look back, we're really getting into the heat of, which is why I'm excited about these next few weeks of having. We're both in town, as long as none of us gets really sick. We're gonna be doing a lot of awards movies, and Poor Things is gonna be one of them. And then we're gonna be doing year reviews and Oscar predictions, all that stuff. This will be I'm very excited about this year and who will shake out for the nominations, and looking back, because there's been a lot of good stuff, and this one had 3 more to add to the list, even just in acting, let alone screenplay, directing, cinematography, etc.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think we talked about this briefly before in another episode. This year has been a low-key amazing year for film. Like I think not a lot of people, more of like not people like you and I, but those who are casual moviegoers don't really realize how huge of a movie year this has been. And it's going to be
And
very,
movies are
very
making
exciting.
money again. That's exciting. Some movies
Yeah.
are making money
Yeah.
sometimes. That is
Yeah.
great news. There was a
Yeah.
moment where, like, is this the last year movies will ever exist?
Yeah.
Will all the theaters just turn into parking garages next year? No, they made some money at the theater this year. It's
Absolutely.
amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. And before we talking about turning movie theaters into parking lots or buildings being turned into parking lots, just want to quickly, I'm trying to be good at these transitions, really.
That was great. Yeah.
Yeah.
There, we actually see a theater get destroyed.
We do. A very
-1.
famous theater gets destroyed. Yeah. But before we talk about that, again, just want to remind all of you and thank you again for tuning in and listening. If you have watched the clip out of us on YouTube, thank you again for watching and all that. Again, a great way to show your support is make sure you follow, leave a good rating on the podcast platform you're listening to us on. That will definitely help grow the channel, spread the word, and all that good stuff. If you love watching the clip outs or you want to watch the clip outs, check out the YouTube channel, the LOWKEY GEEK YouTube channel. All links could be found in the description, and you could subscribe there and follow us on there as well. Also, another great way to show your support is to check out our partners that we are affiliated with. Again, we are not sponsored by these people, but these are people that we really enjoy. And, anytime you do a transaction or sign up for any of the services, we do get a little commission out of them. And to learn more about that stuff, I'm going to be talking about them right now. With internet privacy being such a huge deal these days, it's more important now than ever to protect yourself. With Surfshark VPN, you can easily hide your IP address and encrypt all data that you send and receive. You can easily switch regions to other countries in the world. This means not only your true IP address and identity is masked, it also means that you can get around any annoying geolocation locked video content. You can truly unlock the full potential of your streaming services, and for me that's important since I need to research or catch up on movies that may not always be available in my region. With Surfshark VPN, I can easily switch to any region like the UK, and this problem simply goes away. And now I can watch Hulu content directly on Disney Plus or check out some movies on Netflix that I can't otherwise watch here in the US. I also do a lot of banking and account management online, and by using Surfshark VPN, I feel extremely safe and secure doing so. Surfshark VPN also allows you to connect to unlimited devices simultaneously on a single account, and this includes Windows devices, Linux, Android, iOS, Amazon TV, and much more. To take advantage of the current Black Friday deals that they have, make sure to scan the QR code that you see on the screen now, or click on the link in the description below to secure yourself a great deal that gives you a subscription discount over 80% and up to 5 additional months for free. And if you think it sucks, there's a 30-day money-back guarantee, which will give you plenty of time to try out Surfshark VPN risk-free. Remember the good old days? The days of big hair, neon colors, scrunchies, Jinko jeans, and iconic movies and TV shows? At 80sdeals.com, they know how much you miss the 80s, the 90s, and all of the other E's. That's why they created a collection of the coolest, most iconic t-shirts from those eras. Their t-shirts aren't just nostalgic, they're also high quality, comfortable, and stylish. Whether you're a fan of classic 80s movies like The Breakfast Club or Ghostbusters, or just want to show your love for your favorite 90s TV shows like Friends or Baywatch, they've got you covered. And it's not just movies and TV shows, but you can rep the memories of your favorite brands, books, and video games. It's also not just shirts. You can also get all your favorite memories on hoodies, jerseys, and more. At 80c's.com, they understand the power of nostalgia. That's why they created a shopping experience that takes you back to the decades you love. Browse their collection of unique, eye-catching apparel that will make you feel like you're reliving those iconic moments. They've got everything for any season and any type of vacation, so all your gift-giving needs are fully covered here. And if you check the link in the description of this video below, you will find a nice little discount code there for you to use to get some percentage off your order. And they also offer free shipping for orders over $100. That's right, free shipping over $100. So what are you waiting for? Click on the link found in the description to visit 80c's.com today and find your perfect nostalgic fit. Hey everyone, this episode is brought to you by Mint Mobile. Make sure to check out the link in the description of this episode or scan the QR code you see on the screen right now and find out how you can get unlimited data for only $15 a month. Save a whole ton of money on your monthly cell phone bill without sacrificing any of the quality. No contracts to worry about, you can cancel anytime, and the transferring process is so easy. You can keep your phone number or get a new one. Need a new phone? They got you covered as well. Over a year ago, I switched from Verizon without any hesitation, and it's not just because I found Ryan Reynolds to be a sexy mother. Shut your mouth. I'm just talking about Mint Mobile, but I guarantee you if you give Mint Mobile a shot, you'll understand why I made that switch, and you too will be a happy Mint Mobile customer. So once again, check out Mint Mobile, link in the description of this episode or QR code on your screen. Check them out. Hey guys, I hope you're enjoying this episode so far, but before we continue, I wanted to quickly talk about Bulletproof Coffee. Bulletproof Coffee is my favorite coffee of choice to start off my mornings with. Why? Because it's clean coffee. What does that mean? Well, one, there are no chemicals in it. Why? Because they go through this multi-step process of making sure that all of their beans are fully clean and free of any chemicals, so that when you get the beans delivered to you, it is the pure beans, the pure coffee, the goodness that you've been wanting, the taste, the flavor, and the nutritional value as well, without worrying about any added chemicals or anything else put into the mix there. It also doesn't have that weird acidic taste that some coffees give you. I don't know how about you, but for me, some coffees kind of give me that weird sensation in my stomach, makes me a little burpy, and it kind of drags me down a little bit instead of really waking me up, which is something that I need from my coffee every day. Bulletproof also offers a lot of keto-friendly snacks and supplements, anything that you need to kind of add to your everyday nutritional needs, add to your diet, and pretty much transforms the way you feel every day. So for a limited time, if you use this code that you see on the screen right now, LOWKEY GEEK, all caps, one word, you can get 15% off your order. So what is it better than that, right? Check out the link in the description of this episode. Use this code, get yourself your discount, and make your mornings a little bit more bulletproof with Bulletproof Coffee. Now, back to the episode. So yeah, thank you for checking out those and listening to us talk about our partners here. Again, anytime you go through any of those links and you participate, we get a little kickback, and that helps us grow the channel, helps us eventually get Blake a new mic that we would love to get for this channel and for this podcast. So thank you again so much for your support and all that. All right, that all out of the way, let's talk about this big daddy of a monster called Godzilla. Holy moly.
Big daddy. So we never had a chance to talk about Godzilla before. I think when we started doing this podcast, none of the Godzilla movies came out, right? Like the last one that came out here in the States, Godzilla versus Kong, I don't think that didn't come out as we started this podcast. So we never really had a chance to talk about it. And just in general, you and I, we never talked about that at all. So I'm not sure your history with the Godzilla films and all that, like how in-depth you are with them. Were you a fan of them growing up? You know, are you a casual fan now? Like me, I remember growing up with them ever since my dad rented the first VHS tape of Godzilla versus Kong back in the day, the black and white movie. And I think from then, I really loved the character of Godzilla. And I think at my age, growing up in the 80s, a lot of kids my age loved Godzilla. Like that was like a big thing because like big monsters were huge. You know, you had Godzilla, King Kong, you know, you have creatures like Voltron and things like that. So anything huge was like big, right? So Voltron, that's not what I'm trying to think of. Go ahead, sorry, keep talking.
No, that's okay. So I've been following the whole Godzilla thing for a long time. Next year, Godzilla celebrates its 70th anniversary, which is insane to think about that it's been around for that long. But with this new movie, Godzilla Minus One, it is an attempt to kind of bring it back. Let's bring things back to the origin, to the 1954 classic, and let's tell it in a more modern lens, meaning a more filmmaking lens of today's era. You know, still keeping it in the 50s, still keeping it post World War II and all that stuff. And what they did here was something that I was hoping they would do for any kind of monster movie, superhero movie, whatever the case is. And then it's that one thing that we never get to pay attention to and think about. What happens to the regular Joe when all of this crazy nonsense is happening around them? And how does it affect people, the populace, and all that stuff? As you have your Avengers wrecking New York City, as you have Godzilla trampling through the streets of Tokyo, what happens to Mary, your neighbor? Or what happens to Aunt Joanne and their kids and everything when their houses are getting blown apart and, and all that stuff, and the recovery process? This is a movie that finally tells us the human side of things. And I thought it was brilliantly done. I cried a lot in this movie. There are a lot of moments that brought me to tears, heartfelt, emotional moments. You feel for the characters you are being introduced to. You understand and feel the struggle as they're facing this giant behemoth of a situation. Godzilla here, just like the original 1954 movie, is used more as a MacGuffin, as a story plot to kind of portray a certain situation that the populace is experiencing. It encapsulates a lot of the fears and kind of paranoia that was happening around that time. I also do feel like they treated it like Jaws. It reminded me a lot of like Jaws, you know, where you had this pending doom that would pop up every now and then. And how do people as a whole fight against that and get past that, right? You know, especially like certain individuals who kind of rally and try to like take down this beast of a thing. I had all of that stuff in here. The budget for this movie is only $15 million. And it sure didn't look like it. Like, they did a really good job with the budget that they had. Granted, I do have some qualms with how the monster himself looked like in certain scenes. I feel like when it comes to Japanese cinema and their visual effects, they are getting closer and closer to quality. They still have a lot of work to do. And that's not something that's new. A lot of people feel that way, you know, and I think they would even say so. They're still trying to achieve that Hollywood look, you know, that with their visual effects and all that. But with that being said, it didn't take away anything from the movie for me. I mean, the story itself was fantastic and all that. This is probably one of the best Godzilla films I've seen in recent years, even if you compare them to the Americanized versions that we've been getting lately. So with all that out of the way, you know, with that part said, Blake, what is your history with the Godzilla franchise? You know, like how much of a fan are you? And then what were your thoughts and feelings going into this movie when you decided to watch it?
I've seen 8 Godzilla movies in my life. I remember my family watching a couple of them when I was younger.
Mm-hmm.
And also we're going to talk about the MonsterVerse on and off throughout. I know that these aren't the same property, but King Kong movies. And then I was there was the big, huge King Kong movie. I want to say 2001 ish.
Peter Jackson movie.
Yeah.
Yep.
And so there's also like a general awareness of these two monsters. You're wearing a Rampage hoodie right now. That was my favorite game as a kid. And people would say that was Godzilla. And King Kong. It's not. Those are two totally different properties. And the fact you even wore that today makes me think you don't know that. But that's fine. You're not a true nerd. The overall, I really like the recent American ones. The older ones, a lot of the special effects don't necessarily hold up, but the quality of film does. There's a bunch in the middle that seem more, and I don't know because I haven't seen a bunch of them, seem more like B or C quality movies, or maybe it's just the special effects that haven't really panned out too well. You got a man in a suit tearing up what is obviously like a toothpick recreation of a city, and then they zoom in way too much on a building and go, and that's it. Like a little tiny little, what are the things like, not poppers, the things like kids throw at 4th of July on the ground or whatever.
Oh yeah, those little like quick, like yeah. That
thing. That said, it's a legendary franchise. If you're going like 50 biggest, like there's James Bond, King Kong, Godzilla. These are 3 big dynasty fictional characters. You talked about it in your post-movie recap, which I liked, but the political statements of these movies and the way that Godzilla can stand in for a metaphor for nuclear warfare or sometimes other things. I really like these movies. It's just kind of difficult for them to pull it off as a serious movie and not just pulpy spectacle. And this was one of the best ones at pulling off something serious. And we've seen it before where like, okay, there's a love story at the heart of the movie, or there's a dad whose daughter is missing. But this one is really, this character is kind of being haunted by Godzilla the way that he was haunted by the war. And we're going through a soldier's PTSD, the family you find, and his repeated attempts to kind of tackle his own demons. In this case, Godzilla is, not trying to make a pun, a stand-in for those demons in a way.
Right.
And it's deeper than that, but it's also just a monster movie at the same time. And like you talked about, the exact same reaction I had. I go, oh my God, they're doing it. They're doing, who's that person on the ground who's, you're watching their entire lives and city get destroyed. But they also did a lot of backstory, which is part of what surprised me, is there was a good amount of backstory before we even see Godzilla, which is kind of normal for these movies. The other one I'm thinking of that did the person on the ground story was Cloverfield.
Right.
There's certain moments where I'm getting that vibe because you're real zoomed in.
Yeah.
The difference, though, is they are zooming out and showing Godzilla all throughout the movie, but the story itself is very micro on this man, his past, his struggles, his family, etc. Yeah. I feel like that was very well done. There's this one movie critic I listened to, absolute moron, who compared it to Dunkirk and Jaws and Independence Day.
Oh my God.
Kind of person you would see wearing a Rampage shirt in a Godzilla movie. I'm kidding. No. Those were
dunce
good.
Cap. I should just wear a dunce cap. And then it says stupid critic.
Not a nerd. Yeah.
Not a nerd.
Not a dunce. Those are actually really good comparisons. I was also thinking Pearl Harbor as a movie. At the very least, there's a human story at the middle of this, and there's a lot of big boat stuff going on. Yes. Great big boat movie. Yeah. I love a great that's a giant boat and it's getting rocked by a storm, cannon fire. You show me a Pirates of the Caribbean, a war movie, and they're doing a big, like, that giant boat's about to turn so fast and take some hit and then hit away. I'm in. I'm like, that's crazy. Just a real roller coaster warfare movie. Imagine trying to fight a war on a roller coaster. It's crazy. So this was really good at that.
That's kind of one of the reasons why I love The Hunt for Red October, because we got to see a lot of that like underwater like battle and all that stuff, and strategery, as a former president would say. We don't get enough of that, right? So when we do see it, we're like, oh, that's pretty dope. That's awesome.
Very. Submarine movies, boat movies. This was a good boat movie and a pretty good airplane movie. Definitely some Dunkirk vibes where you're just showing the pilot real intense and then you're losing context for a while. Overall, I was very moved. And I'm going to disagree with you on the special effects.
Sure.
Overall, your point holds. It is correct. If they'd had $1 billion, the special effects could have been more seamless. It's also really difficult to take Godzilla, keep the original concept intact, and make it look realistic, because that thing isn't supposed to move at all. It's actually one of the points they made in Shin Godzilla, the recent one I watched preparing for this movie, where they're like, well, that thing definitely can't stand on its legs. Do not worry. And it's almost a joke about the design of the original Godzilla in the first place. Well, that's impossible. Right. How could that even work? There's no physics way that can happen. So when you have a monster that looks like that, your two options are make it look very different. People don't like it when you do that. In fact, it might be a non-starter, or it's going to have to look kind of awkward. And if you have enough money, or you cover up the feet with buildings or something, like, there's kind of ways to go about it. There's one scene in particular I saw someone talk about, and I remembered seeing it and going like, oh, the feet didn't feel very smooth when he walked. That's what's going to happen. Also, when you're super zoomed in or zoomed out, or even in real life, if right now a giant monster was doing that at that size, I'd go, this isn't very believable, because it's not. When you have a giant foot crush multiple buildings, it's not going to feel believable. I think that's okay. I wasn't mad about it, and it never felt. There's one moment where it takes me out of it for a second, and then I go, no, I'm back in it. This is fine. That's exactly what this would feel like for the characters, you know?
Yeah.
Like, I literally cannot believe what you are seeing with your eyes. That's okay.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I don't want to strike it too much because of that, because of my feeling on the visual effects and all. Like I said, like, even though I noticed like little things here and there, it didn't take me out of the movie per se. But I remember, like, for example, like the first time we get to see like a long distance shot of him walking through Tokyo, or the 1950s version of Tokyo, it looked very janky. And I remember I was just laughing at myself. I was like, oh, it looks kind of funny. But then I also felt like, well, I guess it would be the same reaction if I watched a 1980s Godzilla film where I realized, wait, that's a guy in a suit, and I'm supposed to believe like that's a real creature.
Those are harder for me to watch than the 50s one, right? Because at least the quality of film is also bad back then. So you're like, oh, it's a little jumpy, but so is the film. In the 80s, you're like, okay, this is pretty seamless, and that's you can just two guys going.
You can see like fight. Everything looks rubbery and all that. Like the feet doesn't even look solid; it's just like flopping like slippers and everything, you know. So you kind of like just forgive it for that, right? And forgive it for what it is. So I will kind of equate it to that. Like that is kind of like the feeling that we're getting here. But the close-ups were fantastic. Those close-ups, like there were moments where you're staring into the face of this thing and it looks terrifying. And I love that they really focus a lot on that and how it affected those who were seeing it. Like, I love that moment where you had the reporters on the roof and they're trying to like explain everything as this thing is walking right by them. And you could see the fear and the uncertainty of what's happening.
They're losing their shit.
Yeah, it's like, I mean, it just imagine those reporters at a Thanksgiving Day parade, but instead of the balloons, you're watching like a giant creature terrorizing the town, right? Like everyone's like going to be losing their minds, right? So I love that they added a lot of these like little extra moments that we never really got before to kind of like give us the gravitas of the feeling of this crazy thing happening and, you know, reacting to something that is so unnatural. But at the same time, it's destroying everything.
No, go ahead. In a way, we got those before, but they're not showing. This one was very like they'll show the reporter and then they'll show something get wiped out or they run away. Right. But we really lingered in that moment, and they're showing them literally slowly falling down the building as it's breaking off. That was, I think, what was really special about this one. Every now and then you'll see the newscaster and then it gets cut off, you know, the feed or something like that. They did a really good job of zooming in and out, but literally between the feet, the wide view of him, the man and the war and the man's battle within himself as you're going back and forth. That I think was one of the things that this movie is most successful at, is keeping the micro and macro intact throughout without losing perspective constantly. That's a difficult thing to pull off, and the fact that it was so seamless throughout this movie. There's some times where it felt a little slow, maybe a little too much backstory for me at parts, or like you're saying, you zoom in the feet too much, or you zoom out and you lose. It's a little clunky, but damn, to even do that in the first place or to attempt to do that is a hell of a feat. And for it to be successful, that to me was impressive and something that we lose out on in a lot of these movies.
No, absolutely. And I think it's that close attention to our main character, or the characters that we are going to eventually fall in love with and root for towards the end. I love that we spent so much time understanding their plight, understanding their nuances and everything. Like the mechanic character, I wasn't sure we were going to see that person ever again. And the clever way of bringing him back as he's looking for someone to work on a plane to help him kind of destroy this creature and all. I love how he became a major role in the storyline as a whole. And of course, we have to talk about the adopted family that he finds himself in, right? You have the misplaced girl who comes across a baby because that baby was misplaced because her family was destroyed. So they form like their own family, and then they have the aunt, the neighbor who lives nearby that also becomes part of their family. Who, by the way, is portrayed by Sakura Ando, who is like one of my all-time favorite Japanese actresses. The minute I saw her appear, I was like, wait a minute, is that her? I was like, oh my gosh, this is brilliant. Like, I never would have thought she would be associated with a movie like this, because if you look at her filmography, she's involved in a lot of these like very dramatic filled roles in Japan. One of which is Shoplifters. That was like a big talking point as far as Japanese film was the year it came out. But even her little role, she put a lot of dramatic effect and just like that character building in making you really care about this group of people and following their journey as all of this is happening. While he's dealing with his demons, she's trying to kind of just stay sane and alive and all that, and helping him try to realize, be thankful for what you have now and this and that. It's just amazing. And when she makes that sacrifice in the movie, when Godzilla is like, you know, doing his atomic blast, which by the way, I want to talk about this too, because in the past movies, whenever Godzilla does his fire breath or nuclear breath, however you want to describe it, it's a very like kind of like superhero type of effect. It's a very like, you know, like, oh, like compare it to like a laser gun or like one of those like Star Wars effects, right? So it's like, okay,
you can hear a pew pew noise,
right? Yeah. Yep. Here, holy cow, the build up, and it looks like he couldn't even control it as it's like building up in front of him. And then the blast itself and how it really kind of recreates like Oppenheimer himself was testing a nuclear bomb in the distance. That was the major effect that we got from this thing. Brilliant choice, I thought, because again, it makes it more believable and more like, whoa, wait a minute. This is a little bit too close to what we experienced a couple of years ago here in Japan. No wonder why it's so frightening to us, and how, you know, we are seeing this in real life, you know?
You've been to Japan, you might have more context than I do, but is there it's kind of reminds me of like after September 11th, we took out scenes that had the World Trade Centers, the towers in them. We also, there's a bit of a taboo around showing a building blow up, or there was for a while, and now in an Avengers movie they might show it, but they're going to just do it differently, right? And be aware of that. I don't recall a movie that's not about World War II or a nuclear bomb in that way showing this. Like, they're literally showing the mushroom cloud. They're showing the effect that you hear about where the air all goes out and then comes back in. Thing. Like, that's so insane. There's something about collective memory, and when most of the people from a generation are gone, we can talk about the thing or reference it more, and it's less, oh, don't say that or show that, because that person could literally be like, it's more sacred. They're more likely to experience trauma from it. I don't know, but and maybe I'm wrong. I haven't seen a ton of movies that would feature this, but I don't recall many movies from Japan, especially similar to like there are other taboos in other countries from that war. Like, don't name your kid this, don't talk about this aspect, etc. And it's rare sometimes to show those bright line taboos going back into them. But I think we are seeing it more nowadays. That said, this is rare, right? To show it. I know to even have it shown that effectively, but to show it at all, there aren't very many movies about Hiroshima. And we even talked about with Oppenheimer, like they didn't show that in a way because it would have been too messed up for a movie, or to show the actual effects of it. It takes you out of that man's mindset and go like, and there's a version where people said, yeah, you wouldn't show it because then no one would like Oppenheimer or want to root for him at any point in the movie. They'd be like, oh yeah, fuck that guy, because he would see it, right? I don't know, but can you speak on that at all?
Yeah, I just think like in these like newer generations, I feel like they are more open to understanding and to be exposed to the reality of what happened in the past. It's all about learning and taking what happened in the past and learning from that. I also do feel like, and this is something that I mentioned in my reaction, a lot of films coming out of Japan, especially dealing with like government or dealing with history, nowadays they are more free and open to talk about the problems that happened back then or the realities of what happened. So I feel like in this film, and we saw it with Shin Godzilla too, the bureaucracy aspect of it all, the kind of like fumbling nature of government is like, oh, that's not going to happen. And then something else happens. And like, oh, we don't have to worry about that. And then they have to worry about it. The slow to react, the slow to be kind of like, on the forefront of taking care of things. Nowadays, I feel like a lot of these filmmakers, creative artists, and all that are trying to put forth their ideas and opinions on what the society and country is suffering through. Lack of government understanding, lack of transparency, which this film covers a lot of. There's moments when they're trying to rally the troops to fight against this thing, and they're in a room filled with former, soldiers and all that, and they're all like, we don't want to go back to this because we spent a lot of our lives and we're here now with our families. We don't feel like we owe anything to the government who treats us as just throwaways, right? Yeah. And then there's an understanding of, but we need to do this for our future, for our sons and daughters, the future of the country and our families. And we're not doing this for the government. We're doing this for ourselves, right. And we're rallying together for that. And then there's like a huge turn, and then you get whatever happens, right? So I feel like there's a lot of kind of open discussions that are being had and said through these films where people are kind of pointing out, we wish the government would be more like this, or we wish the government would be more transparent, like, oh, in the movie, there's a moment where they even say like, the government doesn't tell us anything, or whatever, hide stuff from us. So I feel like this is a way of them telling their unhappiness with what's happening and the change they would like to see happen. Now, as far as like the whole effect of this big atomic event, right? It's true, we don't really get to see that. And the thing is, like, we didn't get to see really people disintegrating in front of our eyes. We get to see the main female character disappear and get blown away. Yeah. And then we see the destruction that's left in the city, where the city is now just ruins, right? The only time I ever saw something that was more brutal than that was Terminator 2. When she's having that flashback or that dream in her head about that nuclear event that happened on Earth. And she's like looking at her kids through the playground, and then she sees this thing happening, and then a huge explosion, and you see like that big wave, and everyone immediately turns into like ash. Like, that's the only time I've ever seen something so brutally displayed that way. But that was like a fictional story, right? That was not tied to anything historical. So I think more nowadays, they're more lenient and more open to kind of accept that this is something that happened to us in the past. We need to be more aware of that so that we could work our way in preventing and making sure things like that don't happen again. Yeah. But the brutality of it was just, again, gives another whole meaning to this creature of Godzilla that we've never seen before. It's just like, this is like walking disaster. This is walking death, right? This is like horror personified in this creature manifested. And it was frightening. It was like really, really frightening, and you felt it.
Properly.
Yeah.
Raw as hell in that regard. That was one of the things about it that was kind of, it's been a theme of all the movies we've talked about today, where I was a little bit miserable throughout. This one, the spectacle was more entertaining, at least, and there was more energy to it. And at the end, which I know you had some thoughts on, but the way it wraps up more nicely than some of the other movies we talked about today by a lot. But there are moments where it might drag, or part of my problem with Godzilla overall, not trying to knock how significant it is, but I'm not a huge, I have a phobia of snakes. Don't tell anyone. It's one of my weaknesses.
All right.
I also, which was a problem why May December was so troubling at the end.
That makes sense.
And both movies within the movie had a snake. I was like, no, I don't want to be here for this. Why is this sexy? No, thank you. But on Godzilla, he's a nasty looking dude.
Oh yeah.
And it's like, for me, it's kind of stomach churning. It's kind of like, the Sonic the Hedgehog problem, the movie where they're like, oh, it's a little uncanny how creepy it looks. Like, this is that thing, but
with the
only
real teeth
that.
and all that.
They're
Yeah.
like, this is nothing like skin at all. It's the opposite of whatever your skin should look like.
Yeah.
There was some discomfort throughout, and there's a lot of, you're watching a man go through PTSD.
Oh yeah.
And when you've got a guy crying, yelling, "Is this real? Are you real?"
God.
To I'm going to say the love of his life. Maybe this has all been a dream, but he's in a traumatic, miserable way. That was rough to watch. And then he has to go and look at Godzilla, which is just icing on the cake. Insult and injury. That's part of what was not fun about it, but that's one of the things why near the end of the movie, I know I'm going to disagree with you in what you're about to say, unless you
we'll talk about
really sell it. That's part of why I liked how the movie wrapped up. I don't know if you want to get into that now or if you got any other thoughts, but
no, I mean, I'll just say like the following the journey of the main character.
Honestly, I was really hoping that you would be able to help me with names in this movie. That was another, maybe it's a problem with subtitles or my ADHD or something like that, but made it a little harder to follow the story at times.
It's hard to follow names,
But I really loved, this is something I meant to mention earlier, his little boat crew, his buddies.
Oh yeah,
that was amazing. That's the Jaws aspect in a way, but that crew, every single one of those characters, and you have I'm going to call him the scientist. He's really like a war architect. He had a designer, something like that.
Yeah.
The naval engineer or something, and then the older guy, the younger dude. I loved every time that it was like a buddy film. That was fun. And it wasn't the war buddy, the problem where like, oh, I lost my buddy in the war. They were like a little intact group all throughout, which is another one of the nice aspects of the story. You go, oh, he has a found family. You mentioned the found family with the not daughter and the not wife, but then that crew too was heartwarming as hell throughout. So when they're rooting for each other at the end, it was so sweet.
It was again another part of the humanism of the movie that they really focused on. And again, that's how you attract the audience's emotion, right? Is creating these bonds with these people. And that whole tugboat scene, that was very Dunkirkish too. Like when all the boats came in to like save the day and rescue the soldiers. That felt like a very Dunkirkish moment where all these tugboats showed up to try to help with the ships and, pull Godzilla back to the surface and all that. The main actor's name, is Kamiki Rinosuke, who played Koichi, who's the main soldier who suffers from the PTSD and all that. Very, very hard to watch, but heartwarming in many different ways. And he kind of had his like Independence Day moment where he flies into the mouth of Godzilla to try to blow him up and all that. Let's talk about the ending and all that. Because first, you got into this like dire situation where, it looks like our plan didn't really work, right? But you knew he had another plan. He had like a plan C, right? And that was like him diving into the mouth of the beast with his bomb. That's why he worked with his...
Sorry, just one step back. Plan A is shoot bubbles up and then make Godzilla sink
make him sink,
fast.
Right?
Genius.
Yeah.
Plan B was, okay, now a big inflatable. It's so cute.
Yeah.
Okay, and it's gonna be like a little, like what do they call them, the swimming pool that kids, a floaty. Okay, floaties. Now imagine a giant floaty.
Like all these
go
floaties,
up so fast.
Pull them up. Yeah.
When I heard Plan B, I go, well, there's got to be a Plan C because that's dumb as hell. The thing with teeth and claws is gonna be like, oh, weird, I'm floating very fast and I feel scared.
Right.
Maybe I should. Oh yeah, pop.
Right, yeah.
That was a very. It was not a terror because there's not another great plan. When they were like, okay, now we got it. Really, Plan C was use the boat's cables to pull the dude up, and then our pilot man coming in, going, "Wait, you're ready for Plan D? I got you." I was suspicious of Plan D because we'd seen Godzilla get messed up with a bomb in the mouth before, and it hadn't messed him up.
Right.
He was lying to himself or his friend because he had a death wish, saying like, "Oh no, don't worry, I know how to." I thought he was lying to the guy. I couldn't figure out what the deal was there. Maybe you can help clear up the confusion when you go back into what you're talking about. This finale. The ejection sheet is going to come up, I assume, because there's a question of we have a little Kaiser Soze moment where they go back and show the thing that was actually happening. I was not surprised by that at all.
Yeah.
But what threw me was we'd seen the bomb go off in Godzilla's mouth, and Godzilla wasn't really messed up from it. He tells his friend, "Oh, I know that that's his weakness. Trust me." And I get why it would be in the circumstances that played out later, but he didn't know that was going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was like, "Oh, he's doing this either to death wish," which didn't make sense because we already know. We already know the wife character is going to come back at the end. I don't know if you knew that. I
didn't know that. I didn't know that.
Okay. I want to get into that too because that's kind of another plan D of the movie or whatever. Yeah. But I thought he was not going to convince his friend to help him. "Oh, I'm just going to use this to distract you." He's like, "Oh no, I will die, and you'll get your revenge on me. I'll do it, and I'll kind of do what I'd promised I would do for our friends all those years ago." And so that's why he was convincing his old war buddy who hated him, "This is why you should fix the plane, because I will die trying to hurt Godzilla." But really, it was a distraction technique. And then, nope, he's got plan D in his head with the bombs on the plane and everything. So I know you're about to talk about it. I was not surprised by the ejection seat. I was definitely not surprised by the other thing, which we'll get to, I guess, in a second. So you, ejection seat, and that whole moment, awesome moment. I was still pumping my fist.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, again, that's why it brought back memories of watching Independence Day the first time, when he kind of like goes into the big mothership and it's like, "Up yours" kind of situation. Like this was pretty much that moment, right? Now, when he was working with his mechanic buddy, like the buddy knew that he was working on a plane and a bomb and the specifics and all that so that he can fly into the mouth of the monster, because that's what basically he told him. He's basically going to do kamikaze, something he was not able to do during the war. He's going to now fulfill his destiny as a kamikaze pilot and all that. However, they had their little quick conversation. They telegraphed the whole ejection seat thing. If you paid attention to it, they telegraphed it. When they had the big meeting with all the former pilots, they mentioned the government expects us to kamikaze without any ejection seat or lives or whatever the case is. As the pilot's fixing the plane, he notices that there's a sign on the seat that says something in German. I'm assuming it says something like ejection or whatever. Then they have their little like combo.
We already mentioned it too with like, oh yeah, they didn't even put ejection seats into our planes during the war because they weren't valuing human life. And then you see the German words,
Right. So I knew that was going to happen, right? I mean, so
and you're also not going to kill that main character after everything he'd been through.
Oh my God. How much more heartbreaking would have been? Yeah. So I understand all that. And then the whole thing about, he had a bigger bomb on the plane and he was able to get deeper into the mouth. So with the whole explosion happening and I think the combination of the explosion reacting with the nuclear breath that was about to come out really made it more impactful on the head of Godzilla, because basically we just saw the head just like a flower. It was just like bloomed out and all that. So I guess the mindset there was like, if we could do much damage to the brain and the head, it will kill this creature. And it was so weird too, because the body started to crumble and like fall apart like blocks, which was like kind of bizarre in a way. But I guess it's because all the fissions that the nuclear thing was like creating on the body and all that kind of whatever, right? So and all that.
Sure.
So I thought that was like very awesome. That was a pretty like kind of like, a fist in the air moment. Very just like, oh, he did it. And look, he was able to escape and this and that. And then we fast forward. Now, before we fast forward, the aunt character, played by Sakura Ando, she gets his telegram and she reads it and she has.
What did you think the telegram was? If you were surprised later,
I was not hoping it was going to be what it was going to be.
Sure.
And
sure.
So when
it's such a weird take to be like, I wish that woman had died in the nuclear attack.
Well,
but
here's
go
the
ahead.
thing.
I can't wait to hear why you wanted that.
because it's
Sicko.
still it created such an emotional impact to us as a viewer and to the character himself, to kind of like kick him into gear, so to speak, into doing something, into fighting for something that he believed in and that he loved it. Because he, for a while, he was just like, I can't do any of this stuff, right? So I thought it would
Kind
have.
of, but he also had just said, "I choose to live," and then she dies. And he's like, "Fuck this! I want to run my plane into Godzilla
Right.
now." Kind of. He goes back and forth on
It's
those
back
things
and
a little
forth,
bit,
but
where
it's like
he
that
just keeps getting kicked in the
sacrifice.
teeth.
Yeah, it's like that sacrifice for the greater good and all that stuff like that, right? So I thought it would have been more impactful if they just left it as is. The minute I saw the telegram come through, I knew me. I was like, oh no, please don't do this. Because a lot of Japanese films, they tend to do this where they have to have a happy ending. They have to have like a happy
American films
hopeful
too,
ending.
for the record.
Right. Yeah, that's true. But I would have appreciated it more if they took that risk and didn't do something like this. But that being said, I will admit, when he ran to the hospital and sees her in bed, I shed a tear because I was just like, okay, that was very, very sweet, very emotional and all that. But did you notice that there was something on her neck when they zoomed in?
I noticed. I'm assuming that she is going to be missing an eyeball, but I could be wrong. That's where I was more okay with that. There were actual stakes with that she had a severe injury or something. What's on the neck?
So that's my big question here, because obviously we know that they're going to do another Godzilla film. One of the final scenes that we see is, you know, this leftover parts of the creature bubbling and kind of reforming, you know, kind of like, you know, doing the lizard thing of just reforming itself. And you have the big theme playing and all that, which is awesome, by the way. I loved hearing it again.
God, but, I was literally
right, like the minute that theme first hit, oh, that's why you have to see this in the theater.
Like Wars, Jaws, etc. Like it's one of those. Like I was like, oh, this is on the level. I hadn't thought about this score in a while, but yeah,
it's so impactful.
Just,
oh, there it is. Yeah, I got goosebumps and everything. I was like, let's go. But as they were like kind of showing her on the bed, he comes in to hug her, and she leans over. If you weren't paying attention, you would have missed it. But on her neck started forming these little black, veiny, kind of blobby kind of things. And I was like, oh no, what are we doing here? So are they trying to say, now you saw Shin Godzilla, right? So at the end of Shin Godzilla, if you remember, this mutation of a Godzilla, as they froze it, the last scene that we saw was the tail where what looked like offspring of Godzilla in humanoid form was forming. How that happened, I don't know. But are they saying that there's going to be a chemical reaction?
Do you think that she was dating Godzilla in that time where she was disappeared, and that's why
pregnant? That's it. She's pregnant.
Yeah, she's finally having her first child.
Godzilla spawn.
But it was with Godzilla?
Yeah.
Is that where you think she went? And then
that's
like,
why she's been gone the whole time.
Yeah.
That's why he was gone. That's why it took him like 15 days to come back.
Sense.
Yeah, because they were off doing the nasty, and basically she is now carrying Godzilla's child.
That's judgmental.
Yeah. Well, what?
You don't think that Godzilla should be allowed to date?
They're bumping uglies. That's what they're doing.
Wow. You think Godzilla's? You're saying ugly? That's so hateful. He would probably be a fantastic lovemaker.
You know, it's just a phrase. I mean, don't you judge it by his feet? So he must be packing.
And you crossed the line. Okay. Yes! What else would you like to talk about with this topic?
But yeah, that's one thing I noticed that I'm really questioning here. Is
you're saying have like jump out of her stomach will be a Godzilla?
No, I'm just saying that it looks like what they're doing is that there is possibly a chemical reaction side effect of being caught up in that blast that I don't know how they're going to explain it. I just don't know why they had to show that, you know, because you're going to have a lot of us just saying, what the fuck is that going to be about? You know, and maybe you missed it. Maybe you didn't see it, but I remember I saw it. I'm like, what's going on? Cause like, why were they focusing on the back of her neck, you know, and all that? And you just see this thing.
I'm seeing two things. One is radiation poisoning of some kind, and then
Okay.
2 is G cells. Are you familiar with this? I didn't know about this. Godzilla
G cells.
DNA.
I have
And
heard of this. Yes.
and
Yeah.
that might be what allowed her to survive the attack.
Right.
But also, just I got a couple follow-up science questions about that. Like I need the Mr. DNA guy from Jurassic Park
Yeah, we need
to
Ian
explain,
Malcolm or yeah.
to pop in here and be like, so here's what a G cell is. This
Oh,
is how
Mr.
she
DNA.
lives.
It'll be funny if like all of a sudden you just see the pop up and like, well, let me explain to this. Pulls down the screen and all.
You thought this was a movie about nuclear warfare. No, this is actually a Jurassic Park side franchise. We bought the rights.
Oh my gosh. Monster
But yeah, I got
Island.
some follow-ups, and there's a lot of implications. And also, now I want to see a nuclear war superhero movie where the folks who get the radiation, whatever they become, like, give me some of that.
Okay.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe that's number 2, is she's a superhero with Captain Marvel style powers where she can shoot weapons out of her body. I don't know. Yeah.
Maybe they'll give her the possibility
Godzilla.
to eventually grow at the same size as Godzilla, and that is going to be the one who fights Godzilla in the next movie.
I cannot wait for the tentacly giantess woman sequel to this movie. Just absolutely. There's nothing weird about that at all.
No. I mean, it kind of falls in alignment with Japanese, kind of stories.
Go ahead. No. Please be
stories.
very specific about your Google search history.
Come on, we all know about the tentacle stuff that these Japanese people love, right? So let's go. Let's do it.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
Right.
Yeah, I'm gonna see her. Can you just share screen Google search history and then type in a couple keywords based on what you just said? Wow. Overall, though, sincerely about that, if you had to guess, yeah, sure. If they make enough money, they'll probably make another one. You never know what could go wrong.
I'm sure.
And then also the 75th year anniversary is coming up in 2029.
Oh, you're talking about like future. Yeah.
75 is a bigger anniversary, so they might be doing a little ramp up in the next couple of years, right? I don't know how long it'll take to make a sequel. When I was going back at the originals, I was like, y'all made one of these every single year? Holy shit.
They were milking it. They were milking that franchise.
There's been about one for every 2 years that this movie's been around, which is wild since the original. So the next one, either Godzilla's pregnant or going to reform or something.
Yeah.
We've seen that before, the eggs at the end of a movie, right?
Yeah.
And then what do you think's actually going on with her neck, if you had to just guess the implications for this? She'll have some poisoning time bomb in her neck. She's going to become a Godzilla person, or what?
No, since you read it, weird. Yeah, since you read it and you brought it up, I do kind of now I can see the possibilities of the whole G cell thing where because of the radiation that only this Godzilla creature can produce, she has like some sort of reaction where maybe she produces special cells that make her invulnerable. The government's going to find out. They're going to need to extract some of that and experiment, and they're going to need to create something that will eventually go against Godzilla when he comes back, right? So,
okay, yeah,
I can kind of see
and get some commentary of what the response was after the war or something like that, and how they handled nuclear policy, etc. Right. Yeah, which was a big topic in other ones. Is should we do more nukes, less nukes? The very first Godzilla is like, no, people shouldn't have bad science because then bad things happen. And she's got it in her neck. And then this poor man's going to get tortured by, God.
Yeah.
And this poor man's going to get tortured when the love of his life and his now wife is the government's like, hey, can we just use her real quick? You've had a really easy time for the last 2 days. You finally thought your life was good and the nightmare was over.
You had your moments.
Your nightmare is in her blood. Yeah. So, yeah. Poor boy.
Strapped to like a machine the whole time and all that. This is what I sacrificed my life for. But yeah, no, I mean, it's going to be interesting to see how they spin all that. But I guess that's one of the reasons why the way it ended, it kind of prevented me from giving a 5-star rating for this movie. I gave it a 4. Of course, I hearted it. But I think it was just the way it ended kind of threw me off a little bit. I'm just like, oh, come on, that's a little cheesy, but I get it and all that. It would have been nice if they kept it more mysterious in a way, and
Sure, she might still be dying, kind of thing, or he's holding her hand, being like,
right.
I'll wait for you even if you
Yeah,
die,"
maybe
or
she's
something.
in a
Like, she
coma
might
or
die.
something. Yeah.
You're sick that's what you want. Jeez, what's wrong with you, man? You're a real person, dude.
I'm just trying to work on the
No,
emotions here.
sincerely, I think that there's some bias here. I'm gonna say, I'm not even
Sure.
trying to accuse you of it, but just like trying to consider all perspectives. One, we already are saying this movie went there with the nuclear bomb. It's harder to say, hey, you know that tragic thing, this person will die from it, and there's no it that might be asking a little too much from that movie.
Yeah.
To do, and it's also something where we've been reconditioned here, where now Captain America might die, or you might see Spider-Man disintegrate for a movie. You might see the Game of Thrones effect where your favorite character is going to get chopped any moment now. That's changed. And there's times in American movie history where, like in the 70s, okay, we're no longer expecting a fairy tale happy ending. And then that changes again. So for the next 20, 30 years, we are expecting it. And then people are like, oh, it wasn't realistic. Everyone lived at the end. Right now, I think we're in a moment of that more cynical ending, more pessimistic ending where we go, oh, yeah, anybody might die at any moment.
Yeah.
Usually with the Godzilla movies, with the Pearl Harbor, like with the big spectacle action blockbuster, we want to sell a lot of tickets. Titanic is like a rare example of a big boat movie and the person dies, like one of the Romeo or the love story. I also think there may have been a problem where if you thought she had died, then you would be more disappointed. If you'd gone into it like I had, where as soon as she disappears, I go, that's going to be really hard to bring her back. That would have been very difficult to survive, but they're definitely going to do it. Just because that's my expectation with these movies. And then at the end, if they really go there, I go, oh my gosh, they went there. That's incredible that they took that risk. Yeah. But I was assuming the whole time, especially given how fucked up this guy's life had been. Yeah, you take her away and you make him think she's dead, but you can't really kill her. That's kind of too messed up. You know what I mean? No. I think that may have, if your expectations had always been that she would come back, it wouldn't have been quite as like, oh man, like you had that. I get what you mean, though. I'm not actually saying you're evil for wanting her to have died. I like it when the movie goes there and has higher dramatic stakes, right? Like we're actually playing to win and lose lives in this movie, which is realistic.
Yeah.
Godzilla murdered a lot of people in this movie. The fact that everyone in his team and his new family lived is pretty hard to believe just so happened she was on the train that got bit and still lived.
Right? Yeah. It's like wow, she has some luck on her side.
Yeah, and then she gets nuked out of there and still lived. I'm with you. It's not as realistic, that's for sure.
Yeah, but I guess also just if to look at it on the other side of things, it gives you the thing to root for. The thing to have that hope, right? Because you love these characters so much, you don't want anything bad happening to them. So when it affects you that way at the end of the movie, then you know they did something right? So I get it. You can't be all gloom all the time, right? So
I just also always assume, especially if it's a main character, that if they don't show them die, that they're either alive or have the chance to come back in the next movie, always, no matter what. And sometimes they'll even show them die, but in a way that's not super definitive, right? Like you show Superman's grave, but you know that dude might be shooting out of that casket. It's not the definitive 100% no matter what dead.
Right.
And even then there's times where a movie will do that. And they're like, actually, we want them to have a sequel. So how do we bring them back to life? Oh, it was a body double or whatever. Right. It wasn't actually her. It was her twin. Stupid shit. So that said, we have the opposite thing with Godzilla. We're like definitely coming back.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
100%.
100%.
For a fact, every time they're like, yeah, we finally defeated it. We should all celebrate and have a nice day. And they're like, but there's a little heartbeat. There's an egg. The eye pops open.
There's something still forming and reforming and all that. So just wait. Give it 5 years? It'll be back.
75th anniversary. We might have a sequel, baby.
Right.
I'm going there. I'm buying that ticket day one for sure.
Dude, I'm all for it.
Awesome.
Again, if we're gonna get another movie at to this caliber of storytelling, I'm all for it. All for it.
Any blockbuster movie of this caliber, sign me up right now.
Yeah. Well done.
can't get enough.
And again, for us to be talking about a monster movie like this for this long, I
Yep.
mean,
Like
they
Jurassic
did
Park
something right.
level of
Oh yeah,
high quality
yeah,
crafting, blockbuster spectacle, and good story.
yeah,
Good movie.
yeah.
For
What was
real.
your final Letterboxd rating?
I think I went 4 or 4.5. It's in that range. I haven't quite finalized made up my mind about it. It's close to 5 though. Like I'm it's definitely closer to 5 than 3.5, let's say. So
Yeah.
I'm glad we talked about it. I also needed more context on it, which you're good at with these types of movies.
Mhm.
I'm gonna just go ahead and say 4.5 right now. I'd given it 4 last night. There's the parts that dragged, but actually looking back, I like those, and I think we need those to keep his life in perspective.
Right.
So even though there's a few moments that feel dull, the payoff wouldn't have been there if they had chopped that. So
Right. Yeah.
4.5, calling it.
Nice. Yeah. I gave it a 4 and I hearted it. But this is the movie I told you earlier in the episode where it's like this could go easily to a 5 the more I think about it.
What's
I'm
your
still
actual
on
problem
that
is that
fence.
his foot didn't look good for one moment, and so you gave it a 4? Is that
Yeah, I didn't
sincerely
like his
what your deal
toenails.
is?
Yeah, I thought the toenails were
Just
fucked
okay,
up.
you wish they'd gotten a pedicure and then you would have given it 5
Exactly.
stars.
Yeah, exactly.
That's absurd.
Yeah, I know.
I know you don't do half ratings, but is the problem that a 5 has to actually be a perfect movie, not just like a near perfect movie?
Yeah.
Is that how you're grading this?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So if anything you didn't like, it just drops down.
If there's
4.
any kind of criticism I have
A B
about
minus.
it, I would have to subtract something. Yeah, so that will easily drop it to a 4 for me. Now,
Okay, well, I'm giving your system a 2 because your system sucks. Maybe a 1.5.
But
It's absurd.
I think it makes my system more impactful when I do give something a 4 or a 5. You know, again, it kind of helps separates itself from what 3s and 2s are because again, how critical I can be with a lot of movies. So
You should have half stars because there are half stars, and this is a 4.5 movie, right? There's one flaw. It's not perfect, so 4.5. But that also just means that the difference between 4 and 5 is way bigger than the difference between 3 and 4. Because 3 and 4 could have anywhere between 5 and 20 flaws. But for you, you're like, one toenail looks off, 4 stars. That's a whole star you lost, buddy.
Not necessarily.
2 toenails off. That's not 3 stars.
Yeah, I didn't like the way she brushed her hair, so that's a 2-star right there. Sorry.
I just gave your system 1.5 stars, and yes, I'm using half star rating. I'm so sorry.
Good for you. That's good. I'm glad you feel comfortable doing that. But okay, at the end of the day, like we always say here, we are always curious about what you thought about the movies we talked about. Because we are wrapping this week's episode of Movie Time. It was kind of a long one, so we thank you for hanging in there. But again, a lot of movies to talk about, and not just like run-of-the-mill movies. These are just like each of these films had some high quality to them, something special to talk about. So we are very curious and interested to hear your thoughts on any of the movies we talked about. What stood out, what you liked, what you didn't like, what you thought about our discussions about any of the movies we talked about. Please let us know either in the comments of the clip outs on YouTube or on the episode Q&A section, or shoot us an email to the email address that we include in every description of this episode. We'd love to hear your thoughts and feedback. And if you have any questions for us to address, we could feature that question in a future episode. So definitely look out for that. And we'll look out for your comments and all that. So as we wrap things up here, Blake, where can people find you online?
Go to letterboxd.com. Screen name is Last Name Wolf, where I gave all of today's movies 4 or now 4.5 stars. That's Last Name Wolf on letterboxd.com.
Nice. And you could also find
here, all movie season. We're
not going anywhere.
Let's go.
Yeah, we're going to be here through the thick of it. And we are in the thick of it now. You could find the LOWKEY Geek channel on Letterboxd as well. Also on Twix, Instagram, YouTube, as I mentioned before. All the appropriate links for both of our mentions and everything can be found in the description of this episode. Again, thank you so much for watching. Don't forget, leave us a nice rating. let people know that you enjoy listening to us. I noticed like on Spotify, we're gaining a little bit more followers week after week. So we thank all of you who are new to the channel and joining in on that. As Spotify is doing their little wrapped thing moments, we got a wrapped kind of recap of the channel itself. And I think it said 85% of the new listeners that we have were all because of the white noise episode that we did at the end or beginning of this year. So that's awesome. So we really appreciate all of you for sticking in throughout the year and listening to all of our stuff. And we can't wait to grow more and more and grow this community. So we thank you all. So with all that being said and all that out of the way, this has been Movie Time. I've been Renee. That's been Blake. We've been the Movie Bros at the Movie Time podcast. Thank you so much for listening. Until next time, stay cool, stay classy, stay safe. We will catch you all next week. Peace out, everyone. Bye-bye.